it was Liberia's first and only woman president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who said, if your dreams do not scare you, then they're not big enough. Our next speaker has had some scary dreams. They scare me, never mind him. He's cycled around the entire perimeter of Africa. He's circumnavigated Madagascar and Iceland. He's rode from Africa to North America, broken the world record for the fastest row in history, and now he's about to conquer the toughest role yet. That is fatherhood. Please welcome Riaan Manser.
Straight. I want to tell you who Riaan Manser really is. Because it's nice when people say things like that. Riaan Manser really is the world's most romantic husband. So, I see, yes. I see some of the men, and I always get it, because I like to brag about that title I have. A lot of the men, you can see them squirming, thinking, you don't know what I have done, how I proposed, where I went on honeymoon, blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you what I've done. 14 years into my relationship, my girlfriend and I sitting on the sofa, and she says to me, out of the blue, I want to go to New York. So like a good boyfriend of 14 years, I say, immediately, of course, I'll take you to New York. The only problem is that I made her row there from Africa. So, sure, it gets better. We get back, and 17 years into our relationship, and the time is right. I'm going to now propose to her. I am on a beautiful beach in Madagascar, on my one knee, beautiful diamond ring. I ask her the question. There's tears, there's emotions, and the answer is yes. It doesn't even take her a minute or two to start asking, where are we going on honeymoon? I thought it was a bit awkward. I mean, for the guys who are married, you know, normally it takes like after the wedding at least, or just before. I say to Fusty, you know what, we'll go where you have dreamed of going, Hawaii. Palm trees, beautiful beaches, of course. We'll go to Hawaii. I committed, I said to her, you've got my promise. The problem is that I did make her row there again, in that same little rowing boat. Our first trip took 6 months in that little rowing boat, and the second took 40 days. So, I am the world's most romantic husband, for the record. Guys, there is an ocean between saying and doing. We live in a world, maybe even a South African culture, that it's okay to stand around a fire, to hold the beer in the hand, the glass of wine, and to talk about what you're going to do. Talk and talk and talk. Now, I'm going to ask you guys to be so, during the little stories that I share, is I want you to reflect and try see the moments that you have been dishonest with yourself. Don't worry about the people around you and the people you've promised. The people you've been dishonest with outside of you are not important. Where have you lied to yourself about what you're going to do? Some of you may know of the journeys that I've done and the things that I've taken on in the last 16 years. The point that I really want to share with you today, related to those journeys, comes to the willingness on my part to act and to do. Because I understand there is an ocean between the saying and the doing. I also want to encourage you to take away three things that I think were valuable, but you're going to see how they may mirror onto your world, even if it is very different from mine. I know you guys don't do what I do for a living, so I understand that, but three things you're going to see can be mirrored on what you do for a living, no matter where you find yourself in your life. The first thing is courage, the courage and willingness to act. Secondly, perseverance, seeing things through. We say that so frivolously. Twitter, Facebook tells us that we all are courageous, that we all see things through. And the last thing is having the right attitude. It's ad nauseum that people speak about you having to have the right attitude. I understand that. But when I share stories with you, try to see those three things in yourself and obviously in my stories. I decided to change my life by getting on a bicycle and circumnavigating the African continent. I started at the Cape Town waterfront, 5 people and a dog saying goodbye to me. Of the 5 people, 1 was a security guard and 1 was a cleaner. This exact route is the route that I cycled, the GPS coordinates. You guys know about Blood Diamond, the movie? That war that they made the movie about was in full swing in Liberia at the time. I took my bicycle and crossed the Sahara Desert. Can you imagine that? A 50-kilogram bicycle. I'd not even done one August. I didn't even own a bicycle before I left. North Africa, I just thought it would be a bit easier because it was near Europe and it was probably going to be a bit more modern. I was wrong. That line then goes through Cairo where you see the line go through. Guys, please don't make the joke that everybody makes with me from Cairo to Cape Town is not all downhill. I kept cycling and I returned back to the place that I started 2 years, 2 months and 15 days later. Shane, thank you. You wouldn't applaud, especially the woman, if you knew that I told my girlfriend it would take 1 year. She doesn't even trust me if it's me going out for bread and milk now. She's triangulating myself. And nonetheless, this journey was extraordinary for a few things, more so because of what it taught me. I can tell you, you can look at pictures of me when I left the waterfront and when I returned, and you can see a different human being. Spend time with me and you'll see that even more evidently so. Apart from being locked up in prisons and being held by rebels in Liberia, I had some very, very big lessons that I had to learn, and I share one of them with you today. I, like you, when people have told you, be grateful for what you've got, how many times have you rolled your eyes and said, you don't know anything about my life? You don't know where I am in the dark place I am. I know not all of you are in the happiest place in your life right now. So I get to, after I'm held by the rebels in Liberia, I'm a bit shaken up. It's about a week later. I arrive in this beautiful little, they call it the capital city of Sierra Leone, Freetown, and I meet the United Nations chief, UNHCR chief, and the UNHCR chief says to me, Riaan, sleep in the guest house we've got, but do me a favor and speak at this camp we've got. So I do. I'm there early in the morning, got my little map set up, going to show people where I cycled from Cape Town all the way to Freetown. The people start coming into this hall, and it wasn't a hall, it didn't have any walls, it was only a metal roof, and the people were sitting behind these trestle metal tables. I noticed the people that are coming closer to me, every single person either has their arm off over here, at the wrist, or at the elbow. So, yeah, I understood that this is something I'd seen on CNN and BBC, but every time I flicked the channel to the movie. So here I've got these people coming closer, sitting right around me, about 250 of them, and it's not the big, brave soldiers. It's the mothers, grandmothers, some young boys, some babies. I tell my story, and I'm emotional as I walk off because I thought it was quite pathetic, me sharing my story when that's not really relevant, but the people loved it. They were applauding with the stumps of their arms on the tables, echoing in this room. I walked off, and then it was to get, if you've been in that little city, it's a small little place, but to turn left to get to the United Nations building. I was walking on this dust road. Somebody taps me on the shoulder, turn around, a lady with her baby on her waist. Her baby's arm is off at the elbow. And so I stood there and looked at her. We chatted about a few things, where her family was, what she's gone through. But the one bit of bravery that just came inside me, I said to myself, Riaan, ask this lady what happened to her baby. I said to her, how was this possible? She said, middle of the night, lying there with her baby next to her, the drug rebels arrived in their village in a convoy. They lived on the border of Sierra Leone and Liberia. They got them all out, and they'd herd the people like cattle, shining these car lights on them, all drugged and drunk out of their mind. And they'd then select people randomly. You. Those people would then be in a queue, and they would have the choice of the long sleeve or the short sleeve. A choice. If you just Google the model rebel group, also the lured rebel group, and you'll see they did even worse things. But nonetheless, the lady's telling me the story of how she came into the building. I can just see the candles, the panga set up, and she says to me, she stood there confidently looking at the guy behind the table, and she said to him, you can't do this to me. I don't have a husband he's died in this war. I don't come from this village, and I have my baby to look after. She said he looked at the guy standing to her right, nodded. The guy grabbed her baby, threw her baby on the table, and chopped her baby's arm off. I stood there already emotional. And when you've been in these scenarios, when it's taken you sort of out of your body, I stood there and I stared at this lady, staring at the baby, and the baby was busy giggling and laughing. It was about a year old at the time, and was trying to get my attention with its other arm. From that day on, I never, ever, ever, ever let it run like water off a duck's back when somebody said to me, be grateful for what you've got. We live in Hollywood, Africa. Deepest, darkest Africa is only there because of no choice. Sure, I I didn't have an easy upbringing. I was fostered as a child, and I won't pull the violins out, but I never ever had a home. No family ever wanted me. No family ever kept me. I had no father, no mother, so the reason I just tell you a little bit about me is that you have to forgive me when I was one of the kids, teenagers growing up, that I did not believe when people said to me, dreams come true. I didn't believe it. I was the most cynical kid. I grew up into the most cynical adult, didn't believe it. Carte Blanche plays a story of my bicycle trip. Friends phone me afterwards. It's an hour and a half into the phone calls. A friend walks into the kitchen where I was standing, grabs my phone, gives me another phone. It's the guy from Carte Blanche. I say, yes. So I'm thinking maybe it's a joke here or a trick. The guy says, why are you not answering your phone? Mr. Nelson Mandela has just watched you on TV and he would like to know if you can come and meet with him on Thursday morning. Now, Justin Bieber, Naomi Campbell, all of them have to write long, long love letters. Here, this little pawpaw from Richards Bay, a small little town with 600 kids in a school, was being asked by Mr. Mandela to come and meet him. Not stand in a row of 6 people and just shake his hand. Mr. Mandela wanted to meet with me. Miracles do come true, eh? Just put yourself in the way of them. Mr. Mandela, as I walked off, sure, we chatted about a lot of things and he praised me. He does it so naturally. A lot of people have to practice praising others. He did it naturally. But as I walk off, he says to me, hey, my boy, don't rest on your laurels. Like as if, what type of encouragement was that supposed to be as a parting shot? But it was right. I thought from when I left there, I said, Riaan, you think you've achieved something now. No human being in the world has gone around Africa on a bicycle and you've done it. You know what? It's not good enough. I circumnavigated Madagascar after that. I circumnavigated Iceland with a handicapped partner. I was surprised by being able to do those 2 additional things. But this brings me to the most and the biggest achievements that I've done as the romantic husband. I took my wife to New York, which was a world first as well. We rode from a little town called Agadir. The boat is about 6.5 meters long and a small cabin that is no wider. This is too wide. We were shoulder to shoulder. 6 months we spent across on this route, all alone, no other human beings, no interactions. Can you believe no human beings have rowed in a rowing boat from Africa to North America? We little South Africans did it. The woman will love this. Afterwards, you can ask me the question about the circle. That wasn't a sightseeing route. Guys, for the woman, I have to tell you that from Africa, no woman has even attempted or rowed across an ocean at that time. And Fasti was the first woman from our continent in history, which is a long time, isn't it? To row an ocean. So now that I give Fasti some praise, I'd like to just take away a little bit by telling you the olive oil story. The olive oil story happened in the middle of the ocean over there, those little bumps by the North Atlantic Rift. We had 13-meter swell this one morning. It was a Tuesday morning, picked our boat up in the 2nd hour of rowing. We were both not concentrating. We're just in the middle of the ocean, a little 6.5-meter boat. 1 ton it weighed, but the waves were so strong, picked the boat up and threw it. Now, I don't remember it. I just remember being hit by the wave because I was looking the opposite direction. Fasti, sitting behind me, saw the wave curling over us. 13 meters swell would be nearly 3 times this, I think. Probably 2.5. So that's the swell running at you. I get thrown out. My shoes stay behind. I'm in the water getting thrown around. The boat comes back up. I pop out of the foam. There I see Fasti grabbing onto the grab lines. She got stuck in her seat. So we make eye contact. We both have this crazy look in our eyes because I thought she was looking so scared. She said I was looking very afraid. But here is Fasti's response to this whole situation. We both have nearly died. She looks at me. I'm 6 meters behind the boat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, 2,300 kilometers from any land. She looks behind me to my left, looks back at me. Nothing. Maybe she's going to say something encouraging. She looks again back to the left-hand side and she says, behind you, go get the olive oil behind you. True story. You ask her when you meet her and you say to her, what happened to the olive oil? She'll know what I'm talking about. Guys, we decide to up our game and we get married. We call the boat honeymoon. So we literally were on honeymoon when we rowed that boat. But we rowed from San Francisco to Hawaii to get there for this amazing time in our lives, the honeymoon. But while we're halfway across, this is the Pacific Ocean. It's it's a wild place. No South Africans have rowed it. We just on honeymoon. Halfway across, we get a message. You guys are on world record pace. No human beings in history have rowed that quick across, at least till halfway. First, then I stop and we pause and we say, forget about the records. Keep rowing. 1 week or 1 month before we finish, 4 British guys, just tall, 6'7" guys, athletes, built a boat over 3 years, so technologically advanced. They row into Waikiki Yacht Club Harbor, smashing the world record, 39 days and 11 hours. Imagine, only 39 days they row across all that ocean. First and I, 1 month later, row into Waikiki Harbor, 39 days and 3 hours. So those guys aren't standing in a pub tonight with their beers telling their friends that their world record was broken by 2 people on honeymoon. Guys, in conclusion, I want to just leave you with the 3 things that I promised you. My stories are always hope and pray that they're entertaining, but I hope that you sit there and you say, shucks, what Riaan has done in the last 16 years of his life had to start somewhere. It had to start somewhere with a small act. People come up to me all the time and say, you've done so well. If I could just take you back to the moment it started, and then the smallest building block on top of that, and another building block. This over here is just the start of my life. There's people that have spoken to you today that have a history and a life behind them of action, of people that have done and people that have made change. I'm still in the beginning part of mine. 3 things I want to leave you with. The first thing I mentioned to you earlier was courage. All of you think you're brave. So do I. I think I'm brave. The bottom line and the truth is that we're all cowards. Every single one of you, even you, Mr. Naidu. Every single one of us is so guilty of something we've spoken about and spoken about. Now, as simple as promising your son to build him a treehouse. Finding excuses why you haven't done what you said is not good enough. The second thing, you guys know the story of David and Goliath in the Bible. People say, oh, David is such a hero. He killed the massive giant. He wasn't a hero when he defeated the giant. He was a hero when he stood on that battlefield. Everybody with their hearts in their throats, so afraid of this monster coming towards them. And he was the only guy that stepped forward and said, I'll take him on. The first step was scary. It took courage. The second step was easier. The third step, even more so. Perseverance, it's lacking in the world that we live in today. We can't begrudge the world that things are easier, things are quicker, things are a lot more comfortable. But you can't challenge me on the fact that the things that have value to you, the things that mean something to you, all took time. And the last thing, it's something I've been very guilty of, something on many cases, people look at my track record and they think, he's not. Yo, guys, so many times I've had the wrong attitude. Who of you have had the wrong attitude ever? Sure, okay, I'm with the honest group here. This is great. Normally, nobody puts up their hand. Guys, I challenge you in the environment that you find yourself in. You're all different. You have different environments when you have to deal with the nuts and bolts of life, business, relationships. I challenge you, in that environment you find yourself when you're sitting in a boardroom or the family's having a meeting, look around that group, look at the people, and look at the 2 types of people that can only be in that room. People with the right attitude and people with the wrong attitude. Forget about the person across the way from you, the person sitting next to you. Ask yourself honestly what attitude you're going to have. Are you going to carry on being a talker or are you going to be a change maker? Thank you, Prime Media, for having me here today. Thank you very much to Gibbs for hosting us and for Lead SA for doing the amazing things that you guys are doing. Thank you.